You can spend £3.5 on a wheel set in 2026, but do you need to? Could you save about £2 and get something nearly as fast? Or is there a sweet spot for price versus performance? I have gathered some of the best wheel sets available, and with the help of Favero's Asioma Pro RL pedals, I'm gonna find out. I will be riding a flat, fast and pretty straightforward 4.7-kilometer loop on each set of wheels. I will be doing this at a set power, and I will be holding the same riding position, taking the same line through the corners and generally focusing on being as consistent as possible. I've also set the tyre pressure individually for each wheel set using Silka's calculator, factoring in the measured width. I'm going to do 2 runs on each wheel set to try and eliminate a bad run, and we've waited for a day where the weather is actually dry and calm, which if you've been in the UK this winter, you'll know that that's taken a lot of waiting around. We'll do the testing and then we'll head back to look at the results. To make our test as accurate as possible, we needed some accurate power data, so I asked Favero if they could help, and they kindly sent over their new Asioma Pro RL pedals. And these deliver exactly what a lot of you had been asking for, a Look Keo compatible power meter pedal. Crucially, when you're talking about power data, especially for testing like this, it's accuracy and consistency that really matter, because that's what helps you to understand and improve your performance. And with these, we know that they're accurate because Dave found that in his independent review of the Pro RS versions last year, which have the same hermetically sealed spindle technology. Oh, and they've boosted the battery life from 60 to 160 hours recently, so they should just about cover our afternoon of testing. Before we get going, I want to introduce you to our cast of chosen wheel sets. Now, I've tried to provide a good range of prices, but most brands that we spoke to naturally wanted to send us their fastest wheel sets. So we've got more at the premium end of things. But starting us off, the Yolio's CS60s. At 1,650 quid, these are actually a decent price. They're nice to ride too, but I want to do just a quick free hub sound check. Next, at a pound under £2 are the Scribe Elan Ultra 6s with their mad spokes. I can't wait to see how these do because the claims were pretty bold. Free hub, smaller. Then we have a wheel set that should do quite a bit of winning this year. Roval have the Rapide CLX3s under Malia, Kopecky, Remco. And I'm sure they're dying to see how their wheels stack up in the all-important road.cc test. Free hub. Oh, that's what it should be like, nice and quiet. Vision's Metron 60 RS SL is a wheel set that you'll see on a lot of team bikes throughout the peloton, so I had to have them included here. Loud. Envy's SES 4.5s have the widest internal width of 25mm, and while POG has a new Pro version, I still think these might be very, very fast. These are actually on Chris King's, so this is a satisfying buzz. And finally, our most expensive wheels on test are the Scope Artex 6. Ow! Loud. Okay, it's time to get testing. I think we need a montage. That's all of the timed runs done, so I'm back in the studio. We're going to have a little look at which wheels were actually the fastest. But before we do that, I do have a few notes on which ones handled the best and kind of rode with the nicest qualities. So Rovals were notable. In amongst all of those wheels, they felt the smoothest over broken roads. And to be honest, A lot of those road surfaces that we had today were reminiscent of the roads that I generally ride, those kind of B roads. And a lot of the surfaces there are not ideal. So that was very nice to have. And they also, I felt, cornered the nicest. Mostly, I think that was because they actually felt the smoothest. And so through the corners, they seemed to be tracking just the most calmly, which was quite nice. I will say now that I think carbon spokes can feel a bit jittery, and a few of the wheel sets here had them. So if you're a lighter rider, yes, carbon spokes give you a super light weight, and they're fantastic for going uphill. But if you're riding a lot of broken roads, then maybe if you're a lighter rider like me, go into owning them knowing that. The scopes felt most susceptible to the wind. So if there were any gusts, and I've found this in my further testing of the wheels, full review will be over on road.cc very, very shortly. They pick up the gusts a bit more. It's not the worst, but again, they are quite deep, 65 millimeters. So kind of to be expected. The Yolios, they felt brilliant, especially when you consider the money. They are the cheapest on test by a country mile. They also climb super well, being the second lightest on test. So that is one of the benefits of having those carbon spokes. Envy, well, they're the only hookless rims on test, and they do ride very nicely. Now, I've been riding those wheels for a few years now, and I've not had any problems with road hookless. But similarly, I've not found any real world benefits to going hookless. So one thing that really helps with handling, especially cornering at speed, is being low to the ground. So the 10.5mm stack height on the Asioma Pro RLs was really nice to have. Because of that and the tight 53mm Q factor, I didn't have to change anything about my saddle height when swapping over from my old Ultegra pedals. You're also getting the widest contact surface among look compatible power meter pedals currently available, which is one thing that I really liked about my Ultegra pedals. To have the same stable pedaling platform for power transfer is great, especially when these only weigh 130 grams each. And I didn't have to mess around with different carbon blades to adjust these. They've got Allen key attention adjustments, and that is very helpful. Back to those wheels. The lovely people at Hutchinson were very kind and sent us a set of tyres for each wheel set, which meant that I could go and put an equal amount of sealant in each tyre and avoid any on-the-day setup issues. While I was installing all of those tyres, I made a few notes, which I have here. I would say that 3 sets of wheels set up absolutely perfectly. So Vision's Metron 60, they were lovely. The scopes were lovely, but also the scribes. All of them, perfect setup. And I will give a hat tip to the people at Scribe because their taping job was absolutely beautiful. And if you think that's a small detail, fine. But if you're spending several thousands of pounds on a wheel set and they're not taped well, and then you have to redo it, or you get sealant under there and then they leak, it's just not good. So to see perfect tape, love it from Scribe. The Envies were absolutely fine, although there was a very sharp crack on the bead seating. Now, if you've ever had a tyre blow off in your face, which unfortunately I have, quite scary. The only real disappointing set were the Rovals. Now, they came with tape that looked pretty janky to me, and they needed slight pressure needed on the tyre kind of around the valve to get them actually going. And then there was some leaking when the tyres were actually inflated, which meant topping them up, riding them a couple of times before everything seemed to just settle down. So not the best when you're spending, what, £2 under 3 grand. Okay, it's results time. I'm not going to keep you in the dark any longer. The scopes were fastest in our testing, and I have a few theories about why that might be. One, they might have just tested better on the day. They might have had a cleaner run, though I'm pretty sure we were pretty traffic free for everything. Or that fish scale design on the rim surface might be doing wonders. I'm not really too sure, but they felt really nice to ride. And they're really expensive. So if you can afford them, then maybe you too can save a second on a flat course on the Somerset levels. If it's worth it for you, go for it. The Rovals were second. Now, this is an established design with that kind of super wide front rim. And to me, I've always thought that it's a little bit outdated now with a 21mm internal rim width. Now, I tried getting in the new Sprints, maybe they're even faster, but I think these surprised me. They surprised me with the comfort because they're so narrow internally, but also they're so fast. And it's evident that Roval have quite a good design with those wheels. Jumping then to the bottom of the table, Yolios were the slowest in our testing, but they're also the cheapest by a long way. So if you want to kind of buy into that speed or get close to it, well, you can do. They only really lost a handful of seconds, and I think that's worth bearing in mind. Is this going to be the reason, say, that you get dropped from the group ride or a race? Probably not. And they do climb really, really well, especially with the stiffness from those spokes and the super low weight. I was a bit disappointed, I have to say, by the Vision wheels. Now, they were the second slowest, so obviously they're faster than the Yolios, but these also cost 3 grand, over 3 grand. So where, now that we're talking about money, would my money go? Well, I think that the Scribes have to be the best kind of bang for your buck. They're the good combination between speed. I think they were tested 3rd fastest, but they're also not too expensive. And I say not too expensive in the lightest possible terms. All of these wheels are expensive. There was, however, for me, one sticking point with these wheels. They're well finished, they ride nicely, but they do pick up winds in the gusts. So if you are a lighter rider, smaller rider, maybe a less confident bike handler, they can be a bit of a handful. I noticed that when I was going past farm gates and stuff like that on windier days, I'm getting pushed towards the middle of the road, which isn't the nicest thing. But that said, they are the deepest on test at 65mm deep. So if you went for the, say, 6.5, which gives you a 50mm deep front rim, that might just solve all of your problems. So there you have it. The Scopes were the fastest in our testing, but my money would be going to the Scribes, though I would probably have the 6.5mm version just to have some nice handling. Thank you very much to Favero for helping us with this project. If you want to find out more about the pedals, I'll leave a link in the description below. And if you want to know what tyres to put on your fancy new wheels, we ranked all of the road tyres that I've used in like the past 10 years. So that's just up there. Go watch it. It's quite good. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.